In this video, I'm going to show you how to create a new assignment from scratch. Nothing too terribly difficult and the basic thing you probably are going to be using in Quest. So let's try this out. I'm going to move over to my course page. This is a course that we've been playing with if you've watched some of the other videos. You'll notice that my course has this wonderful little group here and no assignments listed. So all I have to do is click the green button that says Add a New Assignment. Or there's a side menu bar button that you can use as well. So I'm going to add a new assignment. And when I do this, I'm going to get a new creation page. And the first thing I want to do is label what the name of the assignment is. It could be anything I want. I would try to stay away from really long names. It can look a little bit weird on the screen for your students. So let's just say we're going to create assignment 1. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to choose what type of assignment it is. And actually more specifically, we're going to choose what type of grading style we want to use. So in my class, I have homeworks, quizzes, exams, final exams. This is all stuff that I set up in my grading scheme. If I had an optional homework set of assignments, it would show up here. So I could choose maybe, quizzes, exams, finals. They're all the same style of homework or of giving out kind of an exam. However, they have different grading requirements. So I'm going to select the one that I want, my most basic homework. Next thing I get is this option to create or to use a template. And like when you created a course from scratch, you could copy materials in. This assignment, we can copy the questions in from another assignment. If I want to do this, I would go down, I would select what institution I'm in, what semester that assignment's in, what class that assignment's in, and then specifically what assignment I wanted to copy. I'm not going to do that for now because I want to create one from scratch. The next 3 things that show up for this assignment are going to be the dates. There's 3 dates that are going to appear: a start date, a due date, and a solutions available date. The start date is when are the students first allowed to actually attempt the homework. If the date is in the future and the assignment is ready to go for the students, they will see that they're going to have an upcoming homework assignment in their list, but they won't actually be able to create it. So the next part, the next date that you have on here is going to be the due date. And this is like a due date you would have on a normal assignment. When do you want your students to finish with the assignment? When do you cut off them? When are they supposed to turn it in? And there's little calendar buttons that you can set for each one. So I'm going to have this one start today at 10 a.m. I'm going to have it due in a week at 10 a.m. as well. All of these times, I should mention, are currently in the central time zone. So if you're in Eastern, Mountain, Pacific, somewhere overseas, you may have to adjust this to make it so it's due when you actually want it to be due. The third date is an optional one, but it's probably the most confusing out of the dates. It's the solutions available. The vast majority of the questions that Quest has in the public banks available, so our pool of questions that you can choose from, have a question and have a solution written up. So I think of it as the instructor's version of a solution. So if you wanted to give out a solution or the key itself, this is the date that governs when can the student see it. So if you don't set the date, they'll never be able to see a sample solution using their numbers. However, if you do set this date, once that date is passed, then they will be able to see kind of your version as an instructor, the instructor's version of the solutions. This one, for most assignments, you can't set until after at exactly the same time as the due date or after the due date. So you can't set the solutions before the due date because then It would just be weird. You would show the solutions before they were finished with the assignment, and it would give them a way to cheat. The next field is the points per question. This tells you how many points you're going to put in. The default is 10. A lot of people don't change it. Every so often someone wants to go through. If you're weighting your assignment equally, all assignments are weighted equally, then default of 10 is probably good. But if you wanted to have some questions worth more points than others, you would have to change that later on. Most people never change the 10 points per question. There's some other options. You can override the default participation credit. If you remember from the grading scheme discussion, you can give partial credit for just trying. This is a way to stop that on this particular assignment. You can show them in a one slide per page sort of view. It's not a very commonly used feature, and there's another assignment type that does this automatically that a lot of people will use. And there's this other option that actually is used. It's a randomized question order. And this is the way where you can tell this particular assignment, aside from the grading scheme settings, this particular assignment, if the questions are going to appear in exactly the same order for each student. Is my question 1 the same as your question 1? Or is my question 1 your question 3, and your question 2 is my question 2, and your 4 is my 1, kind of a randomized order. The questions themselves will have some randomization, but the ordering of the questions is what this setting governs. And finally, the last setting is an optional class instruction, so you can type things in. Be careful, this does allow for tech, as in LaTeX tech, so you can put formulas in if you know how to write tech code. The reason why I mention this is that some people will use special characters that are reserved for tech, and they'll get errors when they try to post it. For example, $signs are reserved, very heavily reserved characters, so don't try to put in a $sign, maybe a conversion rate from euros to dollars. Write out the word dollars, write out the word euros. Otherwise, it works pretty well. So once I get done, I look over everything, I create the assignment. It's going to warn me. It says I'm not allowing the students to view solutions. Would I like to continue anyway? Yes, because I don't want them to see the solutions. I can always go back and hit the settings and change a lot of this stuff. All right, so we have our assignment made. However, our assignment has no questions in it, so we're going to put in some questions. I can either import my questions from a list. So if I have a list of questions or ID numbers that I like using, I can put them in there. Or the common way is to click on the Add a Question button and bring up our question finder. And it has a couple different ways to search for questions. Your default area, your default bank is going to be what shows up first. So if you always are going to be teaching in physics, then you might want to set it to all physics. If you're teaching matter and interaction, you might want to choose matter and interaction. But you can choose any of the lists that are available to you, and you should have a lot available to you. Once you get down into the kind of general subject area you want to look at, then you're going to choose what type of, or what chapter are the questions coming from. So in Quest, all of the questions are organized by chapter and section. So bank, chapter, section. So if I'm looking at physics, one of the first topics that we have in physics is one-dimensional motion. And in one-dimensional motion, there can be displacement, velocity and speed, acceleration, all sorts of different things. So I'm going to do velocity and speed, and then I'm going to hit go, and it's going to search for all the questions in the motion in one dimension with velocity speed section. And I'll see 79 different versions of this question. If I click on a specific question, it'll bring up a preview of that question. I can actually preview all the questions and see a list of them. But really what I want to do is these arrows over here. So once I know what question I want, I can add the question to the assignment. So I know I want ant race. I've used this question before, so I click on the little arrow. And when I do, over on the side, the question is going to appear. So now this question is in my list. Say I want to put cyclist in this one as well. And it does tell you how many times this question has ever appeared and the percentage, or relative percentage of how good it is. So I can see that this question, Card Leaves School, is a much easier question than Concept 20 PO4, whatever question that is. So I'm going to do the preview all just to see what that looks like. And some of these take a little loads because I'm trying to load essentially 20 or 79 questions here. And I can see over here that, ant race, I can see what that question looks like. I can scroll down. We talked about that cyclist question, so let's see if I can't find cyclist. Okay, so cyclist, this is another question. It's a two-part question. It does show me the question body, the answer, and the solution. So that third date we were talking about before, this is what would show up for the students, so you can get an idea. All right, distance, time, velocity. I like this question. I'm going to use it so I can put the checkbox on there. Glacier movement. It's a pretty simple question. Let's use this one as well. I'm going to scroll back up to the very top and I'm going to add those selections. One thing I should say is that some of these questions have multiple versions, and you can see how many unique variations the questions have, and you can actually scroll through some of the other variations with different numbers. So you'll see that I have ant race, cyclist, displacement versus time 04, and glacier movement, the 4 questions I added. I can go and add more. If I actually want to search by text, I can search in this area. I can actually say that I want to have only multiple choice questions in my one-dimensional velocity time thing. So let's put a multiple choice, because I don't think I have one of those currently. And let's pick an easy one. Distance time graph 01 short. So that's probably a one-part question. So you can see I have a one-part question. This question's worth 20 points. This one's worth 20 points, which means they're two-part questions. Apparently the distance time graph, I should have previewed it first, is worth 30 points, which means it's 3 different parts. Doesn't matter, I'm just showing you around. So I'm going to hit done adding. I'm back in the assignment. I can see now I have 5 questions for a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 parts. If I click on one of these little previews, I can see what the assignment would look like for the students, or a relatively close idea of what the students would see. So I can see all the questions. That doesn't look like that bad of an assignment. So I'm going to close out that. I can see it with the correct answer labeled and with the explanation shown. If I wanted to change some settings on the individual questions, I can look at you can use a pencil to go in and change maybe the point values. I can maybe change it to an extra credit. If you ever see a little red flag here, then you want to probably stay away from that question because it tells you that someone has marked that question as having a mistake in it. And the X is to delete a question. I can actually move these questions around by clicking and dragging them around. So if I want that 3-part graph question as the first question, you can just click it and move it around. If I hit update, the numbers will change, but it's not really that important. So once I get done with everything, I'm happy with how the assignment is. The very last thing, and the most common mistake that happens in Quest with giving assignments out to the students, is forgetting to publish to the class. Before I do that, I want to show you, that I have one assignment in here that has some start and stop dates on it, has 5 items, but you'll notice that it's not published, and technically it's not available to students yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the publish button and it'll bring up a warning. And the warning says that this operation can take a little bit of time and that we cannot change the content once we publish this assignment. You can't assign an assignment to your students unless it's published. So really think of it as sending it off to the publisher. If you don't do this, your students will never see it. Even if the dates are within the range, your students won't be able to see the assignment. And once you publish it, you can't change the question and say, oh, I want to add an extra question. It's too late. You actually have to delete the assignment and recreate it. You can change a few things after publishing. One of the common ones that you can do is changing the dates around. Maybe you want to extend the time. Maybe you actually did want to set a solution date for it. Another thing you can do is you can readjust the points that each question's worth. And finally, if you had a question and you noticed that there was a mistake in it for some reason, or you didn't like the question, it was beyond your student's ability, or something happened and you wanted to remove a question, there's the ability to withdraw a question from an assignment after it's published. Otherwise, you're pretty much locked in. Most people don't print all their copies for their students, but some people do. Once I'm sure I'm set, I don't have any more edits I want to make, I hit publish the assignment. It'll bring me back to the assignment page. It'll tell me that my assignment is being published. This could take a little bit of time. While that's happening, we can go back over here. My assignment is being created, and once it's published, then it will be available to the students when my start date happens. So thanks for watching. This is how you go through creating an assignment. This is probably the one thing you're going to be doing more often than not in inside Quest. So good luck.